And this really brings home how dangerous it is in the Ukraine, the level of violence that the Russian forces are using, and of course what journalists in the region are facing every single day. So more power to the crew. I think it was Stuart Ramsey. All power to them. I'm so glad that they are safe, the five crew, the five-man team that were out in the field, and thank you to them for continuing to tell the story of what's happening there. But I'm so glad that they got away safely.
Yeah, they definitely. It's Stuart Ramsey, is producer Dominique, Martin Valls, and also the cameraman Richard, who, as you said, kept recording just incredible footage. As I said, viewers, if you do want to see that, you'll find it on SkyNews.com. And Thomas, I mean, Afua mentioned it there. This just highlights the dangers of reporting this story, reporting from an active war zone. Those guys are all veterans of war zones. They know how to handle themselves, but it's really dangerous out there. We've seen lots of news of of journalists who are living and working in bomb shelters, essentially, in the capital Kiev. It's a really difficult situation to bring this story to the world, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the story I was just going to talk about now is also, domestically in Russia as well, how much more difficult that process is becoming of being a journalist on the ground in Ukraine. I can't imagine the challenges they face there, and also the ethical challenges facing journalists every single day as to the risks that they're putting themselves in and the risks that pose to them and their families. And it is a duty and it is a public service for journalists to be in the ground in places like Ukraine and war zones across the world, and that comes at a price, and that is a price, no doubt, for the family of all the people, or the family of all the crew that you mentioned there, sitting at home terrified night after night for their own family. And as actually at the end of that report acknowledged, and it was right to do so, that these are increasingly the everyday experiences of ordinary Ukrainian people. It can be very easy, I suppose, as a journalist, or indeed anyone in a war zone like that, to sort of place yourself at the centre of that story. But what that report did so well was ensure that it reflected the fact that these were the everyday experiences of hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian people, and indeed many of them are not nearly as lucky as that particular crew, who managed to escape, as Afua said, into a nearby warehouse and be evacuated by police a number of hours later. So the danger that journalists in the Ukraine and in Russia as well are putting themselves into, in the yesterday, just the lower house of parliament in Russia, the Duma, passed legislation where journalists accused of spreading what they call fake news could be imprisoned for up to 15 years. And as you would expect, that definition of fake news is left entirely within the hands of the Russian authorities. BBC News taken off the air there, increasingly Western broadcasters, CBS, CNN, ABC, removing their operations. BBC actually placing its Russian language news site on the dark web in Russia to facilitate that.
He's a once-in-a-lifetime cricketer, certainly a once-in-a-lifetime bowler. The greatest leg spinner of all time, the king of spin. He's the second greatest wicket taker of all time, behind Matteo Muralitharan, with 708 Test wickets. And his record in Ashes Test, I mean, he obviously lived to play the Ashes, was just extraordinary. The ball of the century, as you said, was his sort of introduction to Ashes cricket, and what an amazing introduction that was.
You'll know that someone like Shane Warne, we've been practicing that kind of ball with his brothers and with his friends in the street all his life. So to be able to do it the first time he goes out in the Ashes,
but I don't know if he did practice all his life, because he really wanted to be a footballer. He really wanted to play Aussie rules, and it was the devastation of not making it as a pro player that turned him on to cricket, and that's when he really sort of honed his skills. And I think his sort of rise in cricket happened really, really quickly. He was just he was just gifted, absolutely gifted, because what he did with the ball, other people clearly couldn't do, no matter how many times they practiced. 7 years at Hampshire, beloved by British cricket fans, not just Aussie cricket fans. I mean, the guy just transcended the sport, really. He was a proper superstar with huge charisma and a huge